Hello, and welcome to this week's transit report starting on Monday, August 26th. Today is our third quarter moon. And so, as we look at the chart that I have for us today, I normally run my charts for noon Mountain Time every day, except at the new moon, first quarter moon, full moon, and third quarter moon. So the chart we're actually looking at, both from the astrological wheel and the body graph, is for 3:25 a.m. Monday, August 26th. So as we look at this third quarter moon, we can say that we're in the third week of this lunar cycle. So we have one more week to go as the moon is heading back to her next new moon, which will take place in Virgo. But if we go back to the new moon cycle that we're in, that was in Leo. We had a new moon in Leo 3 weeks ago. And so at that time, we were talking about creativity and the fire sign of the lion, contemplating what good intentions maybe you had to think about how we're using our creativity to shine out into the world with confidence. And then 2 weeks later, we had a full moon in Aquarius. Now, that was quite an intense full moon because the Uranus was in a T square to the sun and the moon. So it really brought Uranus into the focal point, bringing its qualities of unusualness and suddenness, out of nowhere, high voltage energy. So it really brought in this quality where I was speaking about being flexible. Whenever Uranus is involved, we never quite know what is going to happen or where it's going to happen, but just to be aware that it was highly stimulating this full moon in Aquarius, which was the message of bringing out this Leo creativity into the social realm, how we're sharing our truth out into the world and honoring the truth of others as well. In addition to the Uranus and a T square to that full moon in Aquarius, we also had another T square between the Mars-Jupiter conjunction squaring Venus, and Venus was opposite Saturn. So we had a T square between Saturn, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars. And so all of that was really adding to this, again, electric, very dynamic, a lot of square, frictional energy, possibly triggering moments in any area of life. It was really quite hard to say, but just wanted to remind us of how, in that sense, sort of volatile this lunar cycle was. So if you did have any emotional triggering or anything in relationships or the workplace, wherever, just to remember that we're moving beyond that now. And now that we're at this third quarter moon, Dane Rudyard, one of the father of modern astrology, he used to call this the crisis in action. We have the two luminaries squaring each other, the moon and the sun, but it's happening during the waning phase. So again, this idea that we're moving back to another new moon. This is a wonderful time to review, recollect, and take agency to make any changes to bring things into alignment, things that may have been illuminated during that very electric full moon. Now is a wonderful time to, yes, take agency to rearrange, restructure, however that may relate to the storyline that you're going through in your life right now. But to really think of gardening our garden of our soul in that sense, that we need to consider letting things go that are no longer serving us or adding things in for its self-nourishment and health and sustainment as we close out this next week. So this will be a beautiful week to reflect, review, reanalyze, and to ground ourselves as we head towards our next new moon. Now, Mercury is still in retrograde, and so there's maybe another a week also where there's really, as Mercury will begin this forward movement later this week, that we may really be able to find some of the hidden details. Now, whenever Mercury's in retrograde, things get a little cloudy with our intellect and our communication, but it's a very supportive time to take to take a moment to again review and reanalyze. And so I think as Mercury starts to make this forward movement, I'll talk about in a few moments, this will be a wonderful next week or week and a half, really, all the way till September 11th, when Mercury will move out of its shadow, meaning that Mercury is traversing the same terrain in the astrological wheel 3 times. He went forward, then backward, and then forward again. So during this final third phase of that retrograde portion of the chart, a wonderful time to find hidden details. There may be hidden clues, and I'll say more about that once we get to it. So as we look at the body graph, we can see with the sun in gate 59, line 4, and the earth in gate 55, line 4, and Venus is in gate 6 towards the end of Virgo, we still have the channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction. So as we start this week, we're getting this indicator that there may be things happening in our relationships. Now, this channel itself, of course, refers to reproduction of human life, right? This channel of mating, a design focused on reproduction, but it also is very connected to all of our intimate bonds. And so there's definitely a focus, as we can see from the chart, for today and tomorrow, while the sun is still in gate 59 and Venus in gate 6. They'll both be leaving those gates on Wednesday. But we have the channel of mating, and we can also see up in the head in the ajna center, we have the channel of logic. This is our mental acuity to find the pattern and to see deficiencies in the pattern. Saturn, which is in retrograde still, has moved out of gate 22, where it was in retrograde, and backed into gate 63, line 6. And while that's happening, Mercury, also in retrograde, has moved back all the way to gate 4, line 4. And so that's why we're seeing the channel of logic. This is all about having this doubting ability to doubt the logic, to doubt the pattern so that we can improve it. And so when we see these two channels activating, we're getting the sense here that with Mercury in retrograde, doing its very important work of reviewing and reanalyzing and possibly coming up with a formula. Gate 4 is called the gate of formalization. And Saturn, with its restructuring ability, moving back into this gate of doubt, I see real stability here to reformulate our logic in relation to the cycles of development we have been going through in our relationships. So again, while Mercury is very near its stationing and its final retrograde movement, I would think there could be real opportunity here where there could be some aha moments where we really get a sense of whatever we've been going through in these intimate relationships with others, whether it be in our romantic life or work life or network and community, whatever may have been challenging for us during this lunar cycle, whatever we've been grappling with and not really quite understanding, we may get some illumination here, particularly as Mercury again will stop and move forward. Things may come to light that are part of that pattern and perfecting the pattern that we're looking for. So as we go into Tuesday, and going forward now, all of my charts are going to be for noon Mountain Time. The sun's still being in gate 59, line 6, and so we still have the channel of mating and the channel of logic here. But a couple of aspects I want to point out in the wheel to the right. We can see that as of Tuesday, Venus has moved to 27 degrees Virgo and is forming a trine to Uranus in gate 8. Now, not only is that happening, in fact, I want to use my annotator here just to point something out, because it's part of a larger pattern that we're involved in here, and I do want to bring it to light. And so if we look at Uranus at 27 degrees Taurus, still in gate 8, line 3, Uranus is forming that trine to Venus on Tuesday. Venus is moving into a trine to Pluto, and that Pluto is also close to a trine with Uranus. And then lastly, I also want to bring Neptune in gate 25 here, 29 degrees Pisces, is forming a sextile to Pluto and a sextile to Uranus. Now, let me focus in on Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus just for a moment. I've been talking about these outer planets quite a bit. And what I want to bring forward is that The outer planets, as we know, move incredibly slow. And in that sense, they really hold their space in the sky. So I think of them as like the outer scaffolding. Whatever message and transmission we're getting from these three outer planets, it's a long-term message. They're long-term cycles. And of course, the other planets move faster and form faster moving aspects, and they ping that scaffolding and they bring things to light in that sense. But if we think about Pluto in gate 60, which we're going to have there for all the way well into next year of 2025, we have this plutonic energy in the gate of limitation. Pluto is the planet of death, rebirth, and transformation. It's a very mutative planet itself, and it's in the channel of mutation. So there's been this undercurrent, this long-term theme of Pluto and how we may be dealing with the inherent limitations of life. Now, Neptune, the planet of limitless expansion, Neptune knows no boundaries, right? It's beyond the limits of Saturn. It relates to our spirituality, metaphysics, the unseen, the fantasy world, the delusional world, but it's really about spirit itself is in the gate, in the G Center 25, the spirit of the higher self. And so I sense how this Pluto in gate 60, this limitation is challenging the spirit of the higher self. And so our spirit is being tested right now. And I think if we think about it in a global world news perspective, my goodness, that certainly seems to be true. And then when we bring Uranus into the equation, the planet of unusualness and change, Uranus is the planet of revolution. It always brings change, as in gate 8, the gate of contribution and the channel of inspiration. So somehow, again, in this outer planet world, which is often hard to detect in our 3D world vision every day, but these planets work on us, they work on us at deep psychological levels. There's this storyline of how limitations and our acceptance and a surrender of them may fuel the spirit of our higher self towards our contribution of our personal inspiration. Now, these three planets and this little mini trine, that they're not exact, but they're closing into the exact. Now, this story that I'm setting up right here is a long-term story. This mini trine is not going to actually be exact until a year from now, until September of next year, before that Pluto-Uranus trine is exact. But I think we can feel that story building in the background. Now, I bring all that up on this Tuesday chart because I think we're getting a taste of that mini grand trine because of Venus. Venus making that mini grand trine, it actually turns into what we call a kite in astrology. We have the trine between Pluto, Uranus, and Venus. And then when we connect this building opposition from Neptune to Venus, that's what we call a kite. But what it's indicating is the stability of the trine. And then we see that this opposition within that trine is bringing this tension point. Well, that Venus, which on the Tuesday chart is in gate 6, line 6, and is going to move into gate 46 when I get to the Wednesday chart, that opposition between Venus and Neptune is really, really lighting up that trine. And so let's go ahead and look at the Wednesday chart so I can finish out my my little storyline here on this, on what we're looking at here. When we get to Wednesday, that Venus has now moved into the exact opposition to Neptune, and Venus is in gate 46. So Venus, gate 46, which is pushing upward in the original I Ching. It's also called the determination of the higher self in the Rave I Ching, is in opposition to gate 25, the spirit of the higher self. And so I just want to bring these two G center gates to light because I think this is part of this much longer term, slower moving formation between the outer planets, but we're getting a taste of it right here. And so I think as we're going through our experiences in life, to remember to stay centered. This was a very volatile, very highly electric and active lunar cycle. So I think this week, a wonderful time to go back to our tools for grounding. If you'd like some support there, my partner Brandy Jordan has a somatic toolbox at our webpage, emergebydesign.net, has some wonderful practices you can bring into your daily life to really ground you into the essence of your being, and most importantly, to Mother Earth, to Gaia, because I think we really want to ground out after this Uranian cycle that we've been in, because we're moving into a next new moon in Virgo, which is very practical. It's Earth. It's very sensible. So after whatever we've been through in our personal lives this month, really bringing yourself back home right now. Now, on the Wednesday chart, the moon has moved into Cancer. So she is in her home sign. So she's really supporting us in this idea of checking back in with our inner emotional world, checking back in with this sense of peace and tranquility and safety within our home environment. So these could be wonderful activities this month to, again, ground that energy in, to continue to stay flexible and adaptable. That full moon was so intense a couple of weeks ago. We still may be feeling the repercussions or the reverberation of that energy in terms of things changing directions, things being not sure where they're going. And so we still are living in this sort of liminal space due to these outer planets impacting us at such deep inner core levels. And again, that story is going to continue to play out in the coming year. But where we are here, we're getting a taste of that, what this new voice of expression may be like by going through the healing that may be required. Now, I mentioned the word healing because another aspect that's happening in the background this week and will continue into next week is that as of Wednesday, Mercury has reached its final retrograde movement. In fact, he will turn forward at 4 p.m. on Wednesday. And if you take a look at Mercury in the wheel in Leo, in gate 4, Mercury is forming a trine to Chiron in Aries at 23-degree Aries. Now, Chiron, if we put Chiron in the bodygraph, he would be in gate 42, line 3. This is the gate of growth. It's in the cycle of maturation, really associated with the cyclical nature of life. But with Chiron here, again, it's indicating this possibility for a lot of growth in the healing process. And so with that gate 60 and all the energy that's been going into our individual gates that have been so stimulated this year, real opportunity to move into a new realm, a new level of growth and development. And I think this Mercury retrograde, due to this aspect, is very connected to this process, because we can see that with Mercury stationed and moving forward on Wednesday at 21 degrees Leo, it's going in the next couple of days to form the exact trine to Chiron, and then that'll still be in effect for a few more days. So I think with this coming week of Mercury moving forward, that if you've been going through any challenges in your relationships, if there's been any emotionally triggering experiences, that there's wonderful support here to get to the bottom of it, right? To trace those roots of fear, doubt, and insecurity back to their source, to reanalyze wherever they came from in our lives, to reframe, to find the new logic, to find the new story in that sense. Real opportunity here at this point in the week. Now, the other thing to mention on Wednesday, you can see that the sun has moved into gate 40, which puts the earth into gate 37. And so we're also getting this channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. This is one of the 3 channels in the bodygraph that are formed by gates that are opposite each other. We have the channel of charisma, 3420, the channel of structuring, gates 2343, and the channel of community. So those 3 channels are the most common channels that we see in the world. We get this channel of community for 2 full weeks every year. And we're getting it this week here. So now we've left this channel of mating, but we've moved right in the channel of community, and we still have the channel of logic with that Mercury in gate 4. And again, think about how comfortable Mercury is when it's in the Ajna center. Mercury has to do with our thinking and our intellect. So having Mercury in gate 4, there's real potential here to have a new formula connected to healing required within our communities. So I see some real support this week. After, again, having so many squares and oppositions during the full moon, now as we head into the final days of this lunar cycle, we've got a lot of support to let things go that are no longer serving us, to forgive those who may have wronged us, to let ourselves off the hook here, and reorient our focus into what is our passion, what is our inspiration, what is our um, unique value point that each of us has as a human being, and how are we developing to share that out into the world. And I think that's, again, that's the message, and there's just a lot of support of that as we move through this week. So that's Wednesday. Let's go ahead and move. Well, we're going to move into Thursday. Now, when we get to Thursday, and we can see right after Venus was in that exact opposition to Neptune, a day later on Thursday, Venus is in gate 46 still, forming that trine to Pluto in gate 60, line 4. Again, I think this is really supportive, this trine. We're talking about this supportive conversation and relationship between gate 46, the determination of our higher self. This gate speaks to us being present, being grounded in the experience, being present to whatever experience we are in, and accepting that we are in a cycle of development. Gate 46 is very associated with that solar plexus in our life. And here it's in this supporting conversation with that gate 60. How are we experiencing limitations? How are we accepting and surrendering to the situation as it is, but moving beyond that? And so, again, another supportive aspect in regards to that. And with that channel of logic in the background all week, we're getting our mind to maybe come along with that, right? To have a new aha formalization about how we can improve the patterns that we live in regards to where we started with the channel of mating. And as we move through the week here on Thursday, we're having this channel of community. Okay, let's go ahead. Oh, and one other thing on Thursday I want to mention is that with the moon still traveling through Cancer, she is forming a trine to Saturn in that gate 63. So with the moon at 17 degrees Cancer, that actually is gate 53. And I mentioned that Chiron would be in gate 42. So we have the moon joining Chiron in the channel of maturation. So again, she's in her home sign. She's bringing all of the power of the inner emotional world in relationship, a supportive communication with gate 63. So Saturn is doing this restructuring that it does, assessing boundaries, my boundary, your boundary, where do they meet in this logical pattern? And so here's this support again with the moon relating to that channel of logic from the channel of maturation. How are we experiencing a new mental acuity to look at the patterns of our relationships and move through them and develop and heal not only ourselves, but support others in their healing journey as well. So I really like that moon trine Saturn as we're closing this lunar cycle with the next new moon happening on Monday, and this being the Thursday chart. As we move into Friday, August 30th, we still have the channel of community. We still have the channel of logic. What we see here is that the moon has just moved into Leo at this noontime chart. And as the moon moves into Leo, she's going to form an opposition to Pluto in gate 60. And the opposite gate 60 is gate 56. So through this storyline I've been sharing, now we have the moon in gate 56. And I think what can be really supportive here, with the moon in Leo, right? She's bringing her inner emotional world into the sign of fixed fire, the lion, the sign of confidence in play and creativity in gate 56. There's this opportunity here with this dynamic tension to the limitation to develop a new story. What is our new emotional story? For all of us that have gone through some sort of healing experiences, we recognize that we have to change the way that we talk about that experience. Whatever was holding us back, whatever was bringing us these fear, doubts, and insecurities, when we move through a healing process, we're in a new world. We're a new being. We're a new being as a result of that metamorphic healing process. And it's important that we reframe our stories. We have moved beyond that. And here we're getting this opportunity with the moon in gate 56 to restructure this story that we've been telling. And additionally, the sun is forming an exact square and a half to Chiron. Now, as I'd mentioned, that Mercury just is moving forward now as of Wednesday afternoon, but very slowly. Mercury will slowly pick up speed and start moving much faster in the coming days, but he's moving towards his third trine to Chiron in the past 2 weeks. So we've got Mercury trining Chiron and the sun square and a half. So this is two sides of the story. We've got a bit of a frictional dynamic growth energy from the sun and a supportive communicative aspect from Mercury, all centered on Chiron in gate 42. So again, as we're ending this lunar cycle, as we're moving towards this new beginning of this new Virgo new moon we're going to have, to really bring ourselves inward right here, to reconsider, reformulate this logic that's been in our mind and how it may have gone through a bit of a mutative process as a result of this healing. Or in another sense, I can think it's still a wonderful time for maybe talking things out, talk therapy. I just want to really emphasize that with Mercury moving forward right now, it's third time through this portion of the wheel as part of this current retrograde phase. This is where the hidden clues may be found. So really important thing to remember between this August 30th chart and September 11th. That's when Mercury will exit what we call its shadow. These next 2 weeks, while Mercury's making this forward movement from Leo back into Virgo, this is where we really may find some things we didn't see before, really important elements that were hidden prior to this last full moon. So a lot of things to uncover here. Particularly with that channel of logic, that Mercury in gate 4, you can really maybe get a sense that there's a new pattern of mental stability here that's more logical, that's more in line with whatever cathartic process we've been going in internally due to these intense individual gates being stimulated. But I really want to remind us that, yeah, really pay attention here on this third phase of this retrograde movement of Mercury. It's really where things can come to light. Missing pieces that we really felt like we needed may be available. And I think that moon opposite Pluto, something from the hidden truths that Pluto is mining in the channel of mutation may come to light as we move out of this Mercury, this particular retrograde phase. Okay, as we go into Saturday, uh, not a lot of hard aspects or exact aspects to mention. Everything I've been talking about since I started is all in play this entire week. Again, these aspects, they're never one. The moon, maybe, because she moves really fast, but all of them cover at least several days. And as I mentioned, the outer planets, we're talking multi-year cycles. I mean, we are always living within a cycle, within a cycle, within a cycle. And that's why it's so supportive to align with the moon. She is what is connecting us to this inner emotional world, the inner self. And so that's why she's so supportive as we follow her around the wheel and around the earth, and spending time gazing at her whenever we have an opportunity. But here I just want to mention her on Saturday because she is back to gate 33, line 6. Now, this is where the new moon took place. And so as she's in her final couple days before the next new moon, back to where she started in the gate of retreat. So really sort of double emphasizing over the weekend to take your time, take some deep breaths, find your own sense of retreat, to rejuvenate, to replenish. Again, it has been a very dynamic astrological month that we've participated in. And so just want to encourage everybody to really take that time to self-nourish, find your retreat, and to observe what this last cycle of experience may have illuminated for you with such an intense full moon, the Mercury retrograde that had been happening for the whole month. And now we're moving out of that. We're moving into the next new moon soon. And that Mercury moving forward could really illuminate things that would like to know. Okay, so we'll go to our last day here on Sunday. Uh, the moon herself on Sunday will have, just prior to the noontime chart, a couple of hours before, made an exact conjunction to that Mercury in gate 4. And you can see that on Sunday, that Mercury conjunct the moon is in an exact trine to that Mercury. So here we have the emotional quality of the moon, the mercurial quality of Mercury in that gate 4, right? It's got the channel of logic with Saturn there too. And we're in this very important third trine within 2 weeks with Chiron. And we're one day before the new moon. And I think that's what makes next weekend, this coming weekend, so poignant. That we've got tremendous support, emotional support, the support of Chiron and all the gates that I've mentioned, to find a new pattern for ourselves. Whatever emotional triggering experiences that may have come to your mind while I've been talking here, that there's real support here to make this next leap, to finally commit to letting something go that's not serving, whatever that triggering emotional experience, whatever wounding we've had from the past. We've got some really, really nice support here at the final balsamic moon, as she's just about to have another private conversation with the sun on the new moon on Monday. Here we've got this aspect that is urging us to break through, to break those mental chains, that doubting Thomas that always wants to yank us back into the old patterns, where we were not our full, integrated, healed self. That actually, when we are fully healed, we're not triggered. There's nothing to be wounded here, because we have our own sense of self and integrity, and that healing process, these cathartic processes, how powerful they are for our own creative process. Back to that Uranus in gate 8, what our unique expression and inspiration is to share to the world. We've got the support on this coming weekend at the end of this lunar cycle to fully integrate that. So I hope you all found that supportive. I look forward to being back next week for the new moon in Virgo, and thanks for joining me. Bye for now.